Thank you very much and welcome to the meeting of Cabinet held on 20th of November 2025. My name is Jonathan Lester, leader of the council, and I will be chairing this meeting. In addition to those councillors present in the room, we have some other councillors joining the meeting remotely. I will now check that they can hear us and they can see and be heard. So we have Councillor Davis.
Thank you, Chair. I can see and hear you.
Excellent. Councillor Proctor.
Yes, I can see and hear you.
Thank you. Councillor Stark.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. I can see and hear you, Leader.
Excellent. Thank you. And are those officers on? Oh, Councillor Fagan.
Yes.
You can hear us okay?
I can, thank you very much.
Excellent. Thank you.
Sorry I'm late.
It's all right. You've just joined us right at the right time. Perfect timing. Okay, so right, we'll move on to the fact that we have people in attendance in the room as well as on the meeting, and they can introduce themselves, or I will introduce them when it's their turn to speak. So thank you. I will now formally open the meeting. The agenda papers and other relevant information are being made available on the public viewing of the Herefordshire Council website. The Council is streaming this meeting live on the Herefordshire Council YouTube channel and making a recording. To ensure that recording quality is maintained, please speak as clearly as possible and keep background noise to a minimum. Microphones should be muted when you're not speaking. If you have an issue with your microphone, please tell the clerk, who will allocate a new microphone. Please ensure that all devices are turned to silent. That's laptops as well as mobile devices. Others are permitted to film, photograph and record our meetings, public meetings, provided it does not disrupt the business of the meeting. If any members of the public attending do not wish to be filmed or photographed, can they please notify a member of staff? As we go through the agenda, in addition to the discussion by Cabinet members, I will invite group leaders or their representatives to indicate if they wish to provide views and questions from their group on each item. Where appropriate, I will also call on scrutiny chairpersons to comment on behalf of their committee. I will permit group leaders to speak once on each item. Voting will be taken by Cabinet by a show of hands only, and it's only Cabinet members present in the room who may vote. So we move on to agenda item 1, which is apologies for absence. So we have apologies from Councillor Powell, Councillor Bramer, Councillor James, Councillor Toynbee. Are there any other apologies? Okay, thank you. Agenda item 2 is declarations of interests. Are there any table A, table B, or any other interests for items on the agenda today? No, thank you. So agenda item 3 is minutes of the previous meeting held on the 25th of September 2025. No matters of accuracy have been notified to the monitoring officer. Cabinet members, are you content that the minutes of the 25th of September are an accurate record and should be signed? Yep, all in agreement, thank you. So we move on to agenda item 4, which is to receive questions from members of the public. Members of the public have the opportunity to submit questions to Cabinet in writing ahead of the meeting. We have received 5 public questions for this meeting, and the responses have been published as the supplement to the agenda papers. Those who have submitted a question have been given the opportunity to submit a written supplementary question or to attend the meeting and ask their question live. Supplementary questions are to be no more than 1 minute in length and must include a question. I may exercise some discretion, but I ask questioners, if I do ask questioners to stop speaking, they must comply with my request. I will do my best to accommodate that, and I will now ask the clerk to confirm if a supplementary question has been received for the following.
Thank you. We've had 5 supplementary questions. 2 are in person. Would you like to do the in-person ones first, Leader?
Yes, please, if we could have the first one.
First one is Mrs. Morieska.
The response avoids answering my question, which asked what is being done to mitigate the risks from the Southern Link Road scheme. Agenda item 9 shows the risk of capital projects has increased from 9 to 12, a 33% increase in just 3 months. This indicates the council leadership team, which includes the cabinet, is failing to protect Herefordshire's public finances. This perhaps explains the leader's begging letter to government to try and rescue a road scheme which adds hundreds of pounds to all Herefordshire taxpayers' bills for the next 40 years. If directorate control panels are being asked to challenge, reduce, defer or stop spending above £500, why won't this cabinet reduce, defer or stop the spend of over £40 million needed for the Southern Link Road to avoid the financial car crash predicted by the council leader in his letter?
Thank you for that supplementary question. If I can ask Councillor Stoddart to answer the question.
Thank you, Ms. Moraweski. Thank you very much for your supplementary question. I'll provide you with a full and written response to your question. Thank you.
Sorry, so you can't mitigate any risks?
Okay, thank you for that. But Councillor Stoddart has said he'll provide you with a written answer, which of course will be published as well.
When will it be published, please?
It'll be 10 working days. Thank you. Can we have the next question, please?
The next public question is from Mr Milne for Councillor Price.
It is not the case, as the response to my question about the scant reference to 20 mph on page 28 of the LTP implies, that 20 mph is conditional on, quotes, a package of measures including improved crossings, traffic calming, enforcement and active travel infrastructure. Many years ago, the whole of the St James and Bartonshire area of my ward was successfully made 20 mph without any of these measures. Referring also to page 28, where the local transport plan says it will explore a possible car club scheme in Hereford, giving people a cheaper alternative to car ownership, the Cabinet member is clearly ignorant that there is already such a car club in Hereford, also based in the St James and Bartonshire area of my ward, and another based in South Hereford, both well used. How will he amend the local transport plan to acknowledge this fact and encourage support?
Thank you, Mr Milne. Councillor Price.
Thank you, Mr Milne, for your supplementary question. Personally, I was not aware that there was a successful car share club in your ward, as you discussed. I don't think you have a ward, but in your area.
I do. I'm the city councillor for Central Ward.
Okay, thank you. I will look into it and I will get you a written response on for an answer for you. I'll get the details and respond accordingly. Thank you.
Thank you for that question and thank you for the answer, Councillor Price. And we have 3 more supplementary questions that have been submitted in writing. So if we can take the first one, which I think is from Amanda Martin.
Amanda Martin's question for Councillor Price. The answer appears to contradict the recommendation of Cabinet that the Local Transport Plan 5 2025 to 2041 for Herefordshire is recommended to Council for adoption. This means that there is no opportunity for any corrections, as this is the final draft being recommended by the meeting. Delaying the plan, including any scrutiny and corrections, is not recommended even for a couple of months, as apparently momentum will be lost in delivery of priority schemes. Unusually for a plan, there is no list of priorities in the local transport plan document, so please explain where the list of schemes ranked by priority can be found and the implementation plan showing their capital costs, funding sources and phased delivery over the period of the plan, and which are supported by Active Travel England, a major grant funder.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms Martin, for your supplementary question. The recommendation of full council is to adopt the Local Transport Plan, LTP, as the strategic framework for transport in Herefordshire for the period 2025 to 2041. This does not mean that the plan cannot evolve over time. The LTP is a high-level policy document, and its adoption provides the basis for developing detailed implementation plans and schemes. These will be subject to ongoing review, stakeholder engagement and funding opportunities, including those offered by Active Travel England. To clarify, the LTP does not include a fixed list of priority schemes or detailed costings because it is designed to set strategic objectives rather than prescribe specific projects. This approach allows flexibility to respond to emerging needs, funding streams and community priorities over the life of the plan. The prioritisation of schemes, capital costs, funding sources and delivery phasing will be set out in the supplementary delivery plans such as the LC WIP, BSIP, etc. The LTP will be a dynamic document, updated regularly to reflect progress and new opportunities. An annual report on the LTP, including project delivery, KPI updates and amendments required to the document to reflect local and national guidance or legislation changes, will be scheduled once the document has been adopted by full council. This will ensure that the LTP remains up to date and is what is needed to best support Herefordshire Transport Network. Active Travel England will continue to be a key partner in shaping and funding active travel schemes. Their input will be sought during the implementation plan to ensure alignment with their priorities and design standards. In summary, adoption of the LTP now ensures we maintain momentum on strategic objectives while the detailed programme of schemes will be developed transparently and collaboratively in the next stage. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price, and thank you for the question. The next one is by Will Frecknell, and this is a written supplementary again, if we can see that. There we go.
Question for Councillor Price is, whilst you say councillors can commit at the full council meeting on the final draft of the local transport plan, they will not be able to amend the plan at that point, even for corrections or issues raised today, unless Cabinet decides not to recommend adoption of the final LTP to go to full council at the meeting on 5th of December. Page 7 of the LTP says, LTP 5 is a living document that will be reviewed and updated as part of a continuous process to enable councillors and scrutiny comments to be incorporated into this living document. When is the first review scheduled to take place to update the local transport plan?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Frecknell, for your supplementary. The first formal review is scheduled to take place within 12 months of adoption. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. And we move on to the next supplementary question, please, by Mr. Nigel Shaw.
Thank you. It's a question for Councillor Biggs. Thank you for your reply, which suggests that to the Bromyard Employment Land study completed in support of the development of the new local plan is the change that has occurred, but this document also specifically discounted the development of the depot site for employment purposes as outlined in Table E2 of that study. The report did not consider the site to be suitable. I am sure that the Cabinet member would not instruct officers to disregard evidence produced in support of the new local plan in order to deliver his own objectives. Will the Cabinet member now reconsider their actions which go against both local wishes and the comprehensive evidence in the report provided by his own authority?
Thank you for the supplementary question. There are a number of changes that have occurred in taking forward the feasibility to potentially develop employment units on the former depot site, not least the lack of other suitable sites that the Council can bring forward to meet the identified local need. The site has an existing designation for employment use and the very significant mandatory growth targets the Government has imposed through the changes in National Planning Policy Framework. The increase in 30,000 new homes across the county will require the development of associated employment land. This significant change has required that we further review all sites for future development. As a result of the change to the NPPF, the employment land study is about to be updated and will further consider the depot site in light of those change requirements. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Biggs, and thank you for the question. That concludes questions from members of the public. Agenda item 5 is to receive any questions from councillors of Herefordshire Council. We've received no questions from councillors for this meeting. So we move on to agenda item 6, which is reports from scrutiny committees. There are no reports from scrutiny to be received today. So, right, we move now on to Councillor Stoddard, who always makes quite a contribution to these cabinet meetings. The first item is agenda item 7, which is the Q2 performance report, and this is to review the performance of the Q2 report for 2025-26 and to report on the performance position across all directorates for this period. The agenda item begins on page 11 of the agenda pack, and I will now hand over to Councillor Stoddard. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Good afternoon. Today I'm very pleased to present the second performance report for financial year 2025-26 in respect to the Council Plan of 2024-28 and the associated delivery plan for 25-26. This report fully supports our vision for Herefordshire and delivering the best for Herefordshire in everything that we do. We're now delivering for residents across Herefordshire in many different ways. However, it's essential that we hold ourselves to account and we report transparently against the ambitious goals that we've set to make a difference now and to build for Herefordshire's future. And that is what this report today does. I would like to remind my colleagues that this report covers Q2, which comprises of July, August and September of this year. This report outlines the Q2 progress towards key priorities and performance indicators. Appendix A of the report details the 206 of the 240 milestones, which is 85.8%, that were due to be in progress by Q2 and are either completed or are on track for delivery by year end. However, the Council has achieved many successes in Q2 of 25-26 beyond that specified in the delivery plan. We've continued to deliver on our capital investment programme, which comprises of over 100 projects, and the table at para 3 of the report provides full details and includes the Hereford Transport Hub. The initial phase of construction work has commenced with the demolition of the former Network Rail buildings and drainage works and excavation for widening station approach to create a new bus lay-by. The programme is approximately 35 weeks long and is now 23% complete. The Home Lacey Road active travel improvements. The appointed contractor is mobilising for commencement on site, which is expected to commence in early November. There has been a delay whilst the traffic management is agreed to ensure that disruption to the public is minimised. Western Bypass Phase 1, negotiations with landowners continue and urgent meetings have been requested with all landowner agents in order to move the signing of agreements forward at pace. Planning applications for changes to drainage and for haul roads is being prepared and should be submitted early in the new year. Drainage detailed design work is progressing with the contractor and overall Phase 1 remains on track. The phosphate mitigation and integrated wetlands, construction of the second integrated wetland at Tarrington is now almost completed. Employment land in Herefordshire. A contractor procurement exercise has taken place as planned for the construction of the Phase 1 plots and infrastructure at Ross Enterprise Park, with an appointment to be made in October 2025, with works planned to commence in November. The Hereford Museum and Art Gallery pre-construction services, or PCSA, period continues with RIBA 4, the Royal Institute of British Architects design, provided to the contractor for market testing and provision of a true construction cost. These full costs are now expected to be delivered late in November or early December. Peter Church School, the new school buildings. Temporary classrooms have been installed to support the construction phase, with demolition of the existing school building has begun alongside the development of a new playground area. Aylstone School expansion, refurbishment of 3 classrooms to improve facilities for pupils at Aylstone School has been completed. The school's maintenance programme, 8 projects have been completed in Q2, with a further 7 nearing completion. And finally, Hampton Dean Primary School, the extension to the LRC works, has commenced on site for the construction of an extension to the Learning Resource Centre at Hampton Dean Primary School. I'd now like to turn and address the first of the council plan themes, that namely of people. The embedded pie chart in the report shows that of the 87 milestones in the delivery plan, 39 are on track, 22 are completed, 15 are at risk of missing their deadline, 10 have not yet started, and 1 is discontinued. Continuing this council's focus on a child-friendly Herefordshire, a new alternate provision is being developed to support children who require additional assistance to remain in or return to mainstream education. Initial discussions have taken place with prospective providers, and the proposal is being considered as part of the Council's capital bids for financial year 26-27. Collaborative work with top communities progressing to design and implement a targeted support offer for children and families. County-wide early help in the community roadshows have successfully raised awareness and have encouraged engagement. Work is underway to establish a framework of commissioned providers to deliver high-quality alternative curriculum provision for children unable to attend school or requiring additional support. This initiative will improve choice and ensure better value for money. And finally, we're developing new approaches to commissioning and managing daytime community-based short breaks for children and families. Turning to our adult services, we're investigating the development of a new care facility designed to provide high-quality, locally accessible support for adults with complex needs. As part of this process, we're also undertaking a comprehensive options appraisal to identify and evaluate future delivery models. We're carrying out a review of all supported living services that provide accommodation and support for adults with a range of needs, including learning disabilities, autism, and mental health conditions. This review will ensure services are future-ready, responsive to changing needs, and offer high-quality, person-centred support. Within economy and environment, we're committed to supporting residents to lead healthy lives within their communities, including through the delivery of active travel programmes that promote walking and cycling. And as part of this, 5 businesses at the Hereford Enterprise Zone are being supported to develop employer travel plans. I would now like to turn to the theme of place. The pie chart shows that of the 89 milestones in the delivery plan, 60 are on target, 10 are at risk of missing a deadline, 12 have been completed, 4 are not yet started, and 3 are paused. We continue to support and facilitate a partnership-led approach to tackling river pollution, including the publication of a nutrient management plan for the Wye catchment area. Delays within the Environmental Agency have resulted in the nutrient management plan delivery being delayed. In partnership with the Herefordshire Cultural Partnership, work is underway to review and update the Herefordshire Cultural Strategy 2019 to 2029. Consultation findings and elements of the new service vision for the Herefordshire Library Strategy are currently being shared with staff and stakeholders. Turning to the third of our themes, growth, the embedded pie chart shows that of the 39 milestones in the delivery plan, 31 are on target, 1 is at risk of missing a deadline, 6 have been completed, and 1 is not yet started. We are working with partners through the Golden Valley Parkway Task Force to explore the viability of a new railway station. Feedback is awaited from a Transport for Wales study, which will determine whether a parkway station is feasible before any other further studies are commissioned. We're using a range of measures to help prevent formlessness, including the provision of transitional accommodation. As part of this, design and tender preparations are underway to refurbish the Buttercross building in Leominster into affordable housing units. The specification is being finalised, with the tender expected to be issued via the framework in October, and the build is anticipated to take approximately 6 months. Turning now to the fourth and final theme of transformation, the embedded pie chart shows there's 40 milestones from the delivery plan, with 28 on target, 3 at risk of missing a deadline, 8 completed and 1 paused. We are undertaking a transformation programme to ensure the organisation is fit for the future and able to deliver greater efficiency. This includes a review of our commissioning and procurement approach, alongside the development of a new strategic commissioning and commercial strategy. A formal review of the procurement operating model is underway, covering policies, processes and stakeholder engagement through meetings and workshops. And findings are being collated to inform a final report with recommendations. Furthermore, we're building a data and performance-driven culture to support informed decision-making, improve efficiency and manage demand. As part of this, we're reviewing how data is recorded and monitored to meet both statutory and operational requirements in both children's and adult social care. Current efforts are focused on resolving urgent reporting challenges while also preparing for the upcoming end of the existing social care case management system contract, and we are considering other long-term solutions. The Office for Local Government, or OFLOG, has now formally closed, and Local Authority Data Explorer has been removed. MHCLG announced in July that they are launching a new local government outcomes framework which will align with the national key priorities ranging from preventing homelessness and rough sleeping to community safety and satisfaction. The outcomes are underpinned by metrics to measure success. Herefordshire Council is currently working on a response and also considering the alignment of the Herefordshire Council's delivery plan outcomes metrics with the metrics proposed by MHCLG. When this work has been completed, the new outcomes framework will be shared with you all in Cabinet. In the meanwhile, we will continue to report the following top 10 indicators to demonstrate a meaningful indication of our latest performance. The key performance indicators are percentage of service users aged 65 plus, discharged from hospital into Home First who are still at home 91 days after discharge. The Q2 projection was 80%, the Q2 actual figure was 75.21, and therefore it remains amber. The percentage of children and young people social work assessments completed with a timescale of 45 days. The Q2 projection was 85%, the Q2 actual is 80.92, and hence it remains amber. The percentage of children in care who have an up-to-date review, the target set was 95%, the Q2 actual figure achieved was 99.38%, and therefore it remains green. Percentage of major planning applications dealt within 13 weeks or 16 weeks if subject to an environmental impact assessment or with an agreed extension of time. The Q2 projection was 70%, the Q2 actual figure was 88.46%, and it is therefore green. The percentage of non-major, minor and other planning applications dealt with within 8 weeks or with an agreed extension of time. Again, the Q2 projection was 80%, the Q2 actual figure was 83.48% or green. The number of kilograms of waste that is not sent to reuse, recycling or composting or household, the Q2 projection was 480 kilograms, year-to-date March 25, and unfortunately Q2 actual figures are not yet available. The number of affordable homes delivered, the Q2 projection was 130, the Q2 actual delivered figure was 166, and therefore it's green. Number of people rough sleeping, the Q2 projection was 5, the Q2 actual is 23, and therefore that target is red. The value of grants awarded to businesses to support viability and enable growth through the UK Shared Prosperity Fund and Rural England Prosperity Fund. The Q2 projection was £560,000. The Q2 figure actually achieved was £1,091,301.50, and therefore it's green. The final being average days of sickness per FTE. The Q2 projection was 9. The Q2 actual is 8.29, and therefore that remains green. I would like to draw my colleagues' attention to Appendix A to the report, which provides a complete updated status of the Q2 Council Plan Delivery Plan across the 4 themes of people, place, growth and transformation. In conclusion, there's a lot still to do, and we face significant budget challenges through cuts to our funding from central government, together with increased demand of our services. However, we are delivering on our promises from bringing capital projects into delivery to improving how effectively we look after people of all ages who need extra support. I am very proud of the progress that we made in Q2, and people can be assured that we are committed to doing even more. This report continues to highlight the good work that Herefordshire Council is carrying out in support of all of our residents, and I would now like to invite my Cabinet colleagues to endorse both it and its single recommendation. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddart, for a comprehensive account of performance. Before we go to anybody else, we'll go to Councillor Gandhi.
Thank you, Leader. I'd just like to comment on the item regarding the rough sleepers, which is shown as red. The number of individual rough sleepers in Herefordshire continues to fluctuate, and obviously this is a snapshot at that time of the month. Our outreach team provides consistent on-street support and facilitates access to accommodation where available. However, a number of individuals have no recourse to public funds, which limits our ability to offer placements within supported accommodation. The team is actively working with these individuals to help them secure the necessary immigration status to remain in the UK and access support. We have also seen an increase in number of people with no local connection choosing to sleep rough in Herefordshire, despite having access to assistance elsewhere. Where possible, the outreach team has engaged with and supported these individuals. Additionally, there has been a seasonal rise in rough sleeping during the summer months, which we will continue to monitor closely. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Gandhi. Councillor Durkin.
Thank you, Leader. I just want to bring to Cabinet today an update for councillors and residents of Herefordshire regarding our highways and highways. Forgive me for looking down. I want to make sure I get the figures right. Structural attention and surface dressing for the 25-26 year is 58 miles completed. Resurfacing so far for 25-26 is 36 miles, so almost 100 miles of our roads have received attention, and we still have 5 months to go. I wanted to publicly record my great thanks for our officers and the contractors that are doing this work, and for our highways contractors for delivering for the people of Hereford so well. Thank you, Chair, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Durkin. Councillor Price.
Yes, thank you, Leader. In your report, Councillor Stoddart, you mentioned Peter Church Primary School. It's been a long time coming. We're very pleased, but I would like to report that on the severe weather conditions of last week, the old primary school flooded yet again. That's 3 times in the last 15 months and 4 times over the last 9 years. So I do hope that our rebuild of the school has really got to grips with the flooding, with all of the extra work that's going on. I must add on to that last Saturday I was there and around the village, and with the help of 2 officers of the council that were investigating all of the issues of flooding in my particular area and that of Councillor Engels. What a great job they did to visit all of the houses that had potential problems during the severe weather of last Friday. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. Councillor Biggs.
Thank you, Leader. I thought it was worthwhile just raising and formally acknowledging in Cabinet. We had a skills conference here in October. We brought 100 businesses and skills providers into this room. There was a 3/4 of a day of activity there. The skills board's mentioned a number of times in the delivery reports, and to work with those providers, to bring them all together so they're working to a common goal of identifying skills gaps in the county, training gaps in the county, and bring them together, work with businesses so we're providing the right skills for our workforce going forward. I think that's just a tremendous success for the ED team as well, and I'll name drop because frankly Nadine did an incredible job in bringing that together. She worked so hard to deliver it, and it needs those special people working across the council to deliver these things. The only other one is we've got UKSPF. Now we're really good at getting the money out, UKSPF government funding to come in and support activity. We've managed to spend it all as we've gone along. We're really good at spending other people's money as well as our own. We've got a fund called the Small Sparks Fund that's used, but the Community Foundation are running that for us. Now, all councillors, I think, had an email about this. It was a new piece we identified within UKSPF. So there's £1,000 to small community groups. It could be people doing swimming lessons, it could be reading groups, it could be anything of that sort. It's meant there to support things that are already happening, to make it successful and get money into the hands of people that otherwise possibly would be sitting at home, wouldn't be able to take part in those activities, but because of that small amount of fund can take part. Maybe they get 6 weeks of it. As a result of that, they then engage with something that then, when they can afford to stay in it, they can afford and go forward. So it makes a huge difference to our marginalised families and the rural deprivation element that leans into all of those things. So I'd really ask all of us on Cabinet, anybody listening to this, to look at that, and if they know of small group that could benefit from that £1,000 fund, that they get in touch and let's get that money spent as well. Because at the moment we've got until February to get out through the door, and I really need that money spent. Thanks, Leader.
Thank you very much, Councillor Biggs. One of those key now hear this messages. Councillor Stoddart.
Thank you, Leader. Just picking up on Councillor Biggs' comment there about the Small Sparks Fund. What I would also highlight strongly is the Top Community weekly newsletter that Emily Lowe and her team put out. And at the bottom of that includes all the small grants and things that the grants officers have identified. And therefore, if we've got any third sector people that listen to this or are reading about it that would like to be added to that list, contact myself or Emily, and we'll get you added to that list so we can get that news and knowledge out across the county as much as we can. Thank you.
Thank you. Any more comments from Cabinet members? Oh, sorry. Yeah, somebody right next to me. Councillor Swinglehurst.
Thank you. And I hope I speak for all members. You know, when I say that, our thoughts are with communities that have been affected by the flooding. You know, it is devastating. I live very close to Monmouth. What's happened there, it's very upsetting and awful for the people who have homes and businesses that have been, you know, wrecked, and particularly this time of year. Page 28, we have the £1 million investment in the flood risk response programme. So we're already doing a great deal, but that shows that we've got more to do, and more that we are going to do, delivering through Q3 and Q4. And I'd like to sort of thank the officers who went out and really, you know, gave 110% over that period to help our flooded communities in Herefordshire, particularly US Harold, which was very badly hit by the Dulles Brook. But other areas as well, and we mustn't forget that. But, you know, they did a fantastic job, and I think that needs acknowledging. The other thing that I just wanted to just point out, we've got page 31, the Museum Action Plan. So the Museum on the Move, which is an interesting kind of outreach programme, taking museums to schools and communities, is shortlisted for the Museum Development Midlands Award, which is a fantastic endorsement of the work that they're doing in taking the museum out to the wider community, which I think is a really good a good thing for Herefordshire, because we have a dispersed population, that we take some of the treasures that we have out into those populations. And then finally, the River Conference is also noted, and that's tomorrow. It's going to be a very full day, but hopefully it will be extremely worthwhile. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Swinglehurst. Any more comments from Cabinet members? If not, I will go to group leaders for their comments. We have 2 group leaders attending via Teams and 2 group leaders in the room. Well, sorry, I should say Councillor Simmons is substituting for Councillor Toynbee and Councillor Proctor is substituting for Councillor James. But in no particular order. Do I have any volunteers? If not, I'll move swiftly on. Right, okay. Councillor Harvey first.
Okay, thank you very much. You know, it's good news to see as many of the deliverables showing green in this performance report for delivery in year as there are, assuming that they are actually going to be delivered by the end of the year. And I guess on that particular point, I'd like to, you know, sort of test that by referring to paragraph 4, where the alternative provision for children requiring support to return to mainstream education is highlighted. All of the deliverables associated with that are showing amber in the detailed appendix, and I just wonder, given that the text in this paragraph says that a proposal will be being considered as part of the Council's capital programme for next financial year, whether we should actually be showing those as red, at least as far as you know, delivering on and registering the provision during this year, which are two of the milestones. Simply can't in all credibility, be delivered if you're not going to be considering a proposal to take this forward until next year's capital programme. So I welcome the report, I welcome the detail in the report, but I just question whether the logic that's flowing between the text and the information that's sitting in the appendix is actually tight. And given, and I thank Councillor Stoddart for highlighting the difference between the forecast and the actual situation as far as rough sleepers are concerned. And I'd just like to ask whether the amount and the condition and the nature of the accommodation that's being provided for rough sleepers through the winter months is adequate to meet the reality of the demand, seeing as it's 400% greater than was being forecast.
Okay, thank you for those comments, Councillor Harvey. We'll consider those matters after we've listened to other group leaders. Councillor Simmons.
Thank you, Chair. Leader, sorry.
Right.
Force
As
of
you
habit. I share Councillor Harvey's pleasure in seeing so many of those performance targets showing green. I'm really pleased that we work together with the groups and the administration to deliver on so much of this, particularly with regard to, sorry, I just lost train of thought. We very much particularly welcome the children and families early help in the community roadshows that have been done recently. Attended one of those and it was a really positive event, and I hope we can encourage more of those in the future. As with Councillor Harvey in relation to the alternative provision, I've been trying to seek assurance that this isn't relying on the larger out-of-county providers, and that the local organisations that are embedded in our communities are being invited for discussions and supported in bidding for this framework as well. And given that where we are in the delivery of this, I'd really like to press that point, so please ensure that we are doing that. In relation to the appendix, page 11 of the performance report, Jonathan, can I just prompt you about the local nature recovery strategy? I think you made a commitment at full council to arrange for councillors and parish councils to have a workshop on this. I do appreciate the deadlines with ensuring this report is delivered to DEFRA by April, but can I press you to do this and ensure we have this workshop? I think it will be vital to ensure the engagement with the whole county to achieve in our shared goals for this. Thank you.
Thank you for those comments. And online, Councillor Probert, was that your hand up first?
Excellent.
Councillor Proctor, beg your pardon, miles away. You're on mute, sorry. Let's try that again. Councillor Proctor.
I think it's going to stay that way now. Thank you.
Okay, good.
I agree that it is good to see lots of greens in the report, though once again for me, the report is telling us there's lots of activity, but it doesn't talk about the impact. When I raised this on the Q1 report, Councillor Stoddart indicated that he was planning to experiment with showing impact in this report, so it would be interesting to hear where he's got to on that. A very specific item, the cultural strategy is marked as parked because it's not entirely in our gift, but so many things are not entirely in our gift. I don't understand why the cultural strategy is specifically highlighted as parked. And then in the outcome measures, it would be really helpful if this report showed trend data, because, for example, the discharge from hospital continues to sort of flatline a little bit below the target, and I'd be interested in what is the impact of that gap, whereas the Children's Services assessments, it continues to not hit the target, but it is is on an upward trajectory. So those are sort of materially two different things. And I think all of us are going to be very concerned about that spike in rough sleeping. And I'd just like to be assured that the Cabinet is really focusing on that, and maybe some idea of what sorts of things we can expect to see in the Q3 performance report, showing that spike has been dealt with.
Thank you. Thank you very much, Councillor Proctor. And Councillor Davis.
Yes, thank you. We'd just like to say, the Junior Pens would like to say that this report shows the very positive, wide-ranging work that Herefordshire Council is doing on behalf of all the residents of the county. Well done. However, we look forward to a paler shade of red and amber as we go forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so Councillor Stoddard, some comments back there about the nature of the reporting. I don't know if you want to cover those. I'll come to you, Councillor Gandy, in a second, but there's about the reporting and about the alternative provision. I'll leave that to you. If you can assure Cabinet.
Thank you, Leader. Yes, so in relation to the AP milestones relates primarily to developing and discussing with prospective providers. It's right and proper that we join up with the capital programme, and I can confirm to my colleagues that it does remain a key priority for ourselves within Cabinet. To address the second issue, the outputs need to align to the MCHLG outcomes framework, paragraphs 18 to 22, and that's what once we get those from MCHLG, then that's when the outcomes will then be aligned. Thank you.
About the formatting of the document, about the trend data, have you thoughts on including that in a performance report?
We'll look into that and
Okay.
come up with some options. Thank you.
Okay. Right, and then Councillor Simmons, you said about the local nature recovery. Councillor Swinglehurst, can I ask for your thoughts on when that can be achieved?
Yeah, certainly. So before we can sort of share the local nature recovery strategy more widely, we have to have the agreement with Natural England to do that. They're still reviewing it. It was given to them on Monday. They're reviewing it. We've had sort of preliminary feedback from them. We're working through some updates of data and mapping to align with that feedback, but there will be further and more formal feedback. And it's only once that's been given and Natural England have agreed that we can take it and share it more widely with all members and with the public. So the plan at the moment is to keep working with Natural England, get it across the line with them, get their agreement. It will come to Cabinet. It will possibly a political group consultation at one all-member briefing. I'm completely open to suggestion on that. You know, it's a live conversation before it goes out to a wider audience.
And what would the timescale, do you think, be for that? Because there was a deadline mentioned of April.
Yeah, the deadline is April. I think we'll probably be looking to, well, it's dependent on Natural England, but I mean, I would hope by December into January.
Okay.
And the other thing I just wanted to pick up, in case you're wondering about the culture, the cultural partnership is responsible for the strategy, and they are not us. We are on that board, but it's a partnership apart from us, so we're not in control of the timescale for that at all. But it is progressing.
Okay, and I'll go back to Councillor Simmons with regard to a PGC or a full member briefing. What would be your recommendation?
I think it was about actually prior to this trying to get the data into the LNRS in terms of the parishes and areas. We'd had a consultation went out, but it wasn't, I don't think, particularly lots of information put in. So I know what we're not seeing is the draft come out to where areas may have been missed, where you didn't get enough engagement, etc. And it was trying to get the parishes and local councillors engaged because they know their wards, they know their local areas and where there could be opportunities. And I feel that if we've missed this, if it's gone to the point where you know, this is why we asked for this kind of engagement. We're now at the point of getting potentially again a document that we're not able to influence at a stage anymore, and we've lost that opportunity. So, you know, it will end up becoming a briefing or a PGC, and that's not what we were trying to get and what we thought we'd been committed to previously. Thanks.
Okay, well, we'll take that offline because there is in terms of parish councils member involvement, there is a parish summit that's been penciled in the diary for March. But let's think that through further on. Councillor Hurcombe.
Yeah, well, I support the call for more consultation on it. I did have a parish council who organised an in-person event for 50 residents to brief them and talk through it and talk through the website and how you updated it. So I think something has gone on. It's just perhaps a case of revisiting it and doing more.
Anyway, thank you for that, those suggestions and those comments. Right, okay then. Thank you, Councillor Stoddard. Are you happy to put forward the proposal? Oh, sorry. Yes, Councillor Gandhi, the spikes in, yes, that were mentioned and dealing with that situation.
There's 2 points that were raised, actually. Discharge and enablement. It really depends on the people coming out of the hospital. We have no control over that, so it depends on who they are and what they need. With regards to the spike, we always get a spike during the summer months because, for obvious reasons, because it's warmer and people are more people who perhaps have sofa surfed during a latter part or early part of the year, then go onto the streets. We do believe that we have sufficient accommodation. We have accommodation for 16 men in, and we've changed the shelter this year so that they're bunk beds, so we can actually get more beds in than we could previously. And we've also got separate accommodation for 4 women. So we do believe that we have got adequate accommodation. If we got, and certainly the shelter opened on the 3rd of November, when it wasn't particularly cold, I accept. We had 9 people enter the shelter on that evening. I intend to go back this week or next week when it's colder to check on the numbers then, because that will give us a better idea of what the number of people are. But I think people do have to understand that not everybody wants to come indoors, and we cannot force them to come into the shelter. However good the shelter is, some people prefer to be outside and will continue to be outside. And our outreachers will work with them as much as they can, but they will not come inside.
Okay, thank you for making those key points. It certainly is getting colder. Right. Oh, yes.
Just a point about alternative provision that I asked about local groups being invited and supported. And I don't think anyone referenced that. I don't know if it's just a case to take away and think about.
Okay, we'll take that away. Thank you. Right. Okay, so you're proposing, all in favour, we accept this report. Thank you very much, and thank you for those comments as well. So the next item is the agenda item 8, which is the Q2 2025-26 budget report. So this report is to report on the forecast position for the 25-26 budget at Q2, which is September 2025, including explanation and analysis of the drivers for the material budget variances, and to outline current and planned recovery activity to reduce the forecast overspend. This item begins on page 43 of the agenda pack, and once again, I would ask Councillor Stoddard to talk us through this agenda item. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. Today I present the Q2 budget report to you in a very different external environment to that of 3 months ago. As part of our early preparatory work for the 26-27 budget, our initial assessment of the Government's Fair Funding Review 2 has indicated a potential gap between Herefordshire Council's income and expenditure of £27.3 million. This is not good news and represents the Labour Government's priority of urban areas over rural counties, and we will continue to do all that we can to bridge this gap. The forecast 25-26 outturn report shows a net overspend of £7 million at Q2 before management action, which is estimated at £3.3 million and reduces the forecast overspend for 25-26 to £3.7 million. I would like to remind you all that our approved net revenue budget for 25-26 is £231.5 million, which includes planned savings of £3.9 million. This report, which presents the second revenue forecast outturn position for 25-26, highlights the continuing budget pressures to support increases in demand across social care budgets, temporary accommodation and special educational needs and disabilities transport services. The Q2 revenue outturn position for 25-26 shows a forecast variance from budget of £7 million, which equates to 3% of net budget prior to management action, and planned management activity will subsequently reduce this forecast overspend to £3.7 million. This variance represents cost pressures of £7 million, which comprises of £5.6 million in-year net cost pressures and £1.4 million of brought forward savings, targets assessed as at risk at Q2. And the forecast outturn position for 25-26 by directorate is shown at Table 1 in the report. I've stated a number of occasions previously that we will take vigorous actions to achieve the outstanding savings. Recovery actions that are expected to reduce the forecast overspend in Q4 include £2.8 million allocation of the Budget Resilience Reserve to mitigate the impact of cost pressures and volatility in demand in directorate budgets. Continued review of the Council's contract arrangements and shareholdings in Hoople Limited. Additional cost pressures in the Community Wellbeing Directorate emerging in Q2 will be subject to further review and challenge in Q3 before additional allocation from the Budget Resilience Reserve is approved. And finally, challenge of forecast expenditure over the remainder of the financial year through directorate expenditure control panels. You will recall that the Budget Resilience Reserve was established by us in 24-25 to manage the impact of in-year cost pressures and volatility in demand across social care budgets. In the financial year ended 24-25, £4 million of this reserve was applied to cost pressures in the community wellbeing budget, which has subsequently reduced the balance carried forward to the current financial year to £7 million. As detailed in the earmarked reserves and general balances policy statement of 25-26, the allocation of reserve funding in each financial year will require application of the Council's 151 officer and Cabinet approval to ensure that appropriate measures have been taken within directorates. At the end of each financial year, any unused balances will be considered as part of the annual review of earmarked reserves. I would also like to remind you all that expenditure controls first implemented during 23-24 remain in place to support recovery activity and robust control over expenditure in financial year 25-26. Directorate panels will continue to review expenditure on goods and services, as well as changes in staffing arrangements to maintain the increased level of rigour and challenge over expenditure for the remainder of the financial year. Table 2 in the report shows the updated financial revenue positions for 25-26 and shows the projected overspend of £3.7 million. I would now like to address the issue of savings. Council approved a total of £3.9 million of savings for financial year 25-26, which comprised targets in the Children and Young People Directorate aligned to the refresh of the 3-year financial plan. A review of the delivery and status of the 25-26 approved savings has now been undertaken, informed by planned and actual activity in the year to date to determine savings targets at risk of in-year delivery. This review confirms that 1.6 million, or 40% of the total approved savings target for the year, has been delivered at Q2, with a further £2.3 million, or 60%, assessed as on target or in progress for the year. No savings are currently assessed as at risk. A breakdown of the 25-26 approved savings is shown in Table 3 in the report, with further details of the status of individual savings targets set out in Appendix D, Annex 1. Savings not delivered recurrently in previous years have been carried forward into 25-26 for continued monitoring of delivery, as set out in the 24-25 Q4 outturn report to Cabinet in June this year. A focused review of the original proposals and planned activity has been undertaken during Q1, and revised saving plans have been developed where appropriate to confirm activity to deliver savings in 25-26. The status of delivery of these revised savings, which total £11.9 million, is shown in detail at Table 4 of the report, with further detail on the status of individual savings targets set out in Appendix D in Annex 2. And a reconciliation of changes in the individual targets brought forward is at Appendix D, Annex 3. As at the 30th of September 2025, £6.4 million, or 54% of the £11.9 million brought forward savings targets, have been delivered, with a further £4.1 million, or 34% forecast to be delivered in year. £1.4 million, or 12%, remain at risk, and with focused activity underway to resolve or mitigate in year. I must emphasise that the delivery of savings in full and on time is critical to ensure the 25-26 revenue outturn position is balanced and to prevent further pressure on future years' budgets. Progress on the delivery of savings and mitigations will continue to be monitored and will be reported in the next budget monitoring report to Cabinet. I would now like to address the issue of the Dedicated Schools Grant, or DSG. The cumulative DSG deficit is accounted for as an unusable reserve on the Council's balance sheet, as permitted via statutory instrument, which will remain in place until 31 March 2028. This enables all local authorities to ring-fence the DSG deficit from the overall financial position in the statutory accounts. Beyond the period of the statutory override, however, the expectation is that any balance on the DSG unusable reserve will transfer back to the Council's total earmarked reserves. On the 1st of April 2025, the cumulative deficit brought forward was £20 million. The Q2 forecast anticipates a 25-26 in-year deficit of £17.5 million based on September 25 activity data, which will lead to a cumulative DSG deficit of £37.5 million by 31 March 2026. Measures to contain the deficit and mitigate future cost and demand pressures continue to be managed by the service through the DSG management plan, and the financial impact of agreed mitigations will be monitored and reported throughout the year as part of the Council's routine budget monitoring processes. I would now like to turn to capital outturn. The 25-26 approved capital budget of £155.3 million has now been revised to £115.1 million, which includes £11.7 million of unspent project budgets brought forward from 24-25, the removal of a project valued at £6 million, £14.5 million of additional grants, and a reduction of £60.3 million where budgets have been reprofiled to future years. And a detailed summary is shown in Table 5 of the report. The forecast spend position at Q2 is £112.1 million, which represents a variance of £3 million against a revised capital budget of £115.1 million. The in-year forecast variance represents £1 million of underspend on project budgets and £2 million in respect of project budgets to be rolled forward for delivery in 26-27. With explanations for all variances from budget by individual projects are detailed in Appendix B, Table A. In accordance with best practice, capital budgets will be reprofiled at Q2 to reflect the revised expected profile of project delivery. Forecast spend will be monitored by reference to the reprofiled budget from Q2 for the remainder of the financial year, and the full capital programme, analysed by project for current and future years, can be seen in detail by Appendix B, Table B, and with explanations for the reprofile by project at Appendix B, Table C. Forecast delivery of the Council's capital programme for 25-26 assumes a requirement to undertake external borrowing, and provision was made in the approved 25-26 revenue budget to support this borrowing. Cash flow forecasting arrangements have been strengthened in 25-26 to consider the cash flow requirements of the capital programme, managing the timing and affordability of loan interest payments, minimising cash balances, and utilising internal borrowing where possible in accordance with the Council's Treasury Management Strategy. The capital programme includes a number of projects expected to mitigate key revenue budget pressures, and the delivery of these projects on time and within budget is critical to ensure maximum impact on the 25-26 revenue outturn position and to mitigate pressure in future years. These projects are all detailed in Table 6 of the report and include, under Home to School SEND transport costs, the High Needs Grant, social care demand cost pressures, children's residential home, temporary accommodation demand and cost pressures, and then finally repair and maintenance budgets. The council projects with significant grant funding are detailed in the report. They include the Local Transport Plan, Levelling Up Fund, Local Transport Grant, Stronger Towns Fund, the Bus Service Improvement Grant, and lastly, the Brownfield Land Release Fund. I would like to remind you all that the delivery of capital projects is monitored by individual project boards, the Major Projects Forum, and monthly Directorate budget boards. In conclusion, this Q2 outturn report clearly shows that we're meeting our vision for Herefordshire by delivering the best for everything we can do. I would now like to invite my Cabinet colleagues to endorse this report and its 3 recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Stoddard. Few hands going up. Councillor Hurcombe first.
Yeah, can I just congratulate Children's Services on being £1.4 million underspent at this point in the financial year. I know that figures don't always tell the entire story, but this, coupled with consistent improvement across the year, I think is a real feather in the cap to the corporate director and the cabinet member. I think we should note our congratulations to them.
Hear, hear. Absolutely. Good point. Councillor Gandhi.
Thank you. The story over here is not quite so rosy, but I'm optimistic. We recognise that the increase in demand that we have seen since the start of the year, with a particular pressure in domiciliary care, is linked to hospital discharges. The service is currently undertaking a focused piece of work led by an experienced head of service to understand the root causes in order to strengthen processes and the provision for people coming out of hospital, as well as those coming into adult social care through the front door. And I think I want Cabinet to realise that we're not just sitting back here allowing this to grow and grow and believing that someone's going to suddenly come along with a tree full of money. We recognise the situation we're in. We're doing all that we can to address it, and we will continue to do so.
Thank you very much, Councillor Gandhi, for that assurance. Any other Cabinet members talking about the financial position and where we are at the moment? If not, I'll go to group leaders. Any group leaders? Right, okay. Councillor Simmons first, then Councillor Harvey.
Thank you, Leader, and thank you for the detail that's been provided by the team. It's clearly an incredibly challenging picture. And again, I'd just like to say thank you to the Corporate Director for Children's Services and Cabinet Member for the work you've achieved. It's clear that all the markers are showing improvement in performance at the same time as the savings, and I think that's really quite remarkable. So it was always my concern that if we were going to have savings there, it would go hand in hand with a reduction in service provision, and that's clearly not happening. So brilliant, and let's hope Ofsted goes well. I think in terms of being asked to do more with less, it's clear that, particularly in the administration's work on provision of additional SEN spaces within the county and efforts to reduce SEND transport costs, the Green Group really welcomes that and supports it. But I think it's worth remembering that the savings we're trying to make this year are really on top of the remainder of the savings we didn't achieve last year. So, this year's pressures are on top of last, and it's clear that, adult services and transformation are still the main areas of concern, as you've pointed out. We're using another 2.8 million of the Budget Resilience Reserve, and, you talk at the end, Pete, about, Councillor Stoddard, about outstanding budgets would be put back into the reserves at the year end if there are any, but realistically, are we going to be able to achieve that? We haven't yet, and this reserve is dwindling and gives us so little room to manoeuvre. I don't think there's any answer to that. I just want people to be really aware of it. Just in terms of then moving on to the Appendix D, Annex 2 table, I'd just like to ask a question about you seem to be reducing MERS and the transformation's original targets and replacing it with a new Directorate Budget Efficiencies target. Can perhaps have a bit more of an explanation about how that aligns to the original savings targets, because transformation is one of the key areas we're not hitting the targets on. So I want to try and understand that a bit more. There isn't quite an explanation of how those previous and now proposed sort of align. Thank you.
Thank you for that. Councillor Harvey?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, thank you, Councillor Stoddart, for presenting this report, and to officers and cabinet members for the information that it contains. It's a halfway through the year position, and there's a significant increase in the forecast overspend, despite the management action that is being suggested to be taken, which, as Councillor Simmons has already highlighted, comprises largely of applying reserves rather than there actually being any slack in the system or things that can easily be done to make changes in service delivery in year that will deliver reduced spending. My group concerned about the doubling between Q1 and Q2 of the forecast for the SEND transport. Where will we be by the end of the year on this? You know, we've certainly got a grip on the financial forecasting in children's, and that's bearing dividends. However, I'd like my group would like some assurance that the forecasting is credible and gripped in this area, so that, you know, seeing as we're pointing at the end of the year every time with these forecasts, that we can actually have some assurance that we understand where we're going to be at the end of the year on these figures, and that this latest forecast at halfway through the year can be seen as credible. Similarly, adult social care, I mean, the pressure's only building on that. It's great to see that Children's Directorate is living within its means, and given the uplift that it was granted in terms of its overall budget, with a requirement that it lives within the envelope of that over the lifetime of the improvement plan. It's good to see that it's being able to do that, and that some of the improvements that are being seen are being able to be recognised as reduced as underspends. However, we haven't got that prospect in adult social care, where you know, older people and adults needing the kind of provision that this area of our services delivers it's only increasing. It's only going one way. And we've done great things in terms of trying to manage the pipeline through care at home and that sort of thing. But what we're seeing now is a bow wave of demand as a consequence of people who have been being cared for at home reaching the end of the time in which home care is actually able safely to keep them there. And those residential care costs are just huge when they start to hit. So again, my group questions, do we have a sufficient grip and understanding of that bow wave and the pipeline that is developing, so that we can have confidence that the forecast is reliable, given the significant increase between Q1 and Q2 of where we're pointing by the end of the year on this. Capital programme, really great to see that we're only forecasting a £3 million underspend on that. I am struggling to reconcile that with the the increase in the risk that's being flagged in the following agenda item on delivery of capital programme. And I guess I'd like to ask Councillor Stoddart, as I did last year, how much he's prepared to wager that this will be the end of year position for the capital programme, because I know very well that the project manager forecasts and, you know, the reality at the end of the year can diverge quite significantly if there isn't strong pushback and reality being challenged and built into those project manager figures. So I'll leave that with him to think about. I'm happy to put my £5 down on the table in the room here today. Interest on our investments. This is a bit of a hobby horse that I cant around the room on, and forgive me, I'm going to do it again here. At current rates, we can expect by the end of the year to have more than £2.25 million of additional income over that budgeted in this area. That's good news. What I would like to understand, and I'd like some assurance on here in the room, is what are the governance and transparency arrangements around how this money is going to be used. It's really important that this isn't just a slush fund that kind of gets spent on things and stuff as it's being generated in order to get rid of some of the grit and create some oil in the mechanics of the system as we deliver in year. I think I'll leave it there for now.
Many thanks, Councillor Harvey. And to group leaders or representatives online, Councillor Proctor.
Thank you. I think from the Liberal Democrats' perspective, we agree with many of the points that have been made by the other groups, so I won't repeat those. I'll just highlight, I guess, a real concern about the situation that we will end this year in, and the revenue budget and the consequences that will be for future years. So the council historically has been able to take about 10 or 11 million pounds out in savings, which I do not underestimate the challenge of that, but that's a lot less than we're going to have than the gap for next year. And though we may be able to mitigate some of these cost pressures in year by the use of reserves, if they are kind of really part of the cost of the service, then they will have to be added to the savings for next year. So just some understanding of how that is being approached. And then in terms of the capital programme, I'd just like to highlight section 106. Perhaps we can have a bit of information about what is happening with section 106. It's quite a small amount of money in the scale of all the other big capital programs that are going on, but it's actually very far reaching, and it's tied to development that has already happened. So the quicker that we can deliver the projects that were tied to the development, the better it is for our citizens. Thank you.
Thank you very much for those comments. And Councillor Davis. Sorry, Councillor Davis, you're on mute. Could we try that again, please?
Oh, we're there. Thank you, Leader. Thank you to all who took part in this report. It's very in-depth. Increasing demands are always going to be there. Of course, it's disappointing to see that community well-being is failing to meet its agreed budget due to these demands. However, recognising the challenging economic situation that we face with next year's budget, it is vitally important that these demands are controlled to some extent. Obviously, no one's got a crystal ball. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Davis. If only we had a financial crystal ball, that would make things a lot easier. Okay, so some really good observations and questions there from group leaders or the representatives. So, Councillor Stoddart, if you can appraise Cabinet, it was mentioned about Appendix D and the link to the MERS savings. Is there Something you could advise Cabinet about that, please?
What I'll do, Leader, if that's possible, is I'll go through the four sets of observations that we're through. So
Go for it.
Through Councillor Simmons' points. So first of all, she was talking about provision of SEND. So we'll look for the reserve that we've got there. It's we're currently showing the Business Resilience Reserve at £2.8 million, and that reserve was set up to manage risk, and we'll continually carry out review of reserves as part of our ongoing work, and as you'll hear mentioned on the next item. She also then asked for a review of, I think it was the SEN, and we did that as part of the Q1, and we committed to review the source of the undelivered savings, and including in that, when we look at the Transformation Directorate area savings, that target has delivered recurrent savings, but recognising the challenges of transformation savings, they're not quick wins, and we're looking for those more in next year. To address then Councillor Harvey's points, SEN Transport, the forecast at Q2 represents the SEN activity data for the autumn term, and that's currently now difficult to predict because of national increases. And I have to say that having just sat through on Monday and Tuesday the CCN conference, rest assured we're not the only council dealing with SEND, home to school transport and adults and children's social care issues. I was actually very pleased to be able to sit and actually, wouldn't say smirk, but we certainly, myself and others were quite pleased that from a children's service perspective, we're actually now with Tina and with Councillor Powell, we're actually are addressing those issues. We now need to conduct with the others. Going back then to the other points, we are looking at, from a team's perspective, we ensure the joining up activity data as it becomes known to the service teams, so we can make sure that goes through there. Picking up on Councillor Harvey's recurrent question about interest, what I can say is that the cash balances are reducing over the remaining part of the year, and any excess that we have is currently be considered in the light of our need to borrow and cash flow requirements, and we expect to take on any additional prudential borrowing in year which is aligned to the DSG cash flow and others, remembering that DSG were predicting to be £37.5 million. To Councillor Proctor, our current year reserve pressures are being considered as part of the budget setting activity for 26-27, which I can assure you and all of our Cabinet colleagues, we are spending a considerable amount of time on that. And then finally, to go back to Councillor Harvey, this year having failed to have achieved the 5%, I'd now like to say that I'll put my £5 down and we'll go for plus or minus 10%. Thank you very much.
Any advances on 10%? Any advances? Going once, going twice? Okay. But there was a point about the use of capital projects with regard to 106 delivery.
Can I provide Councillor Proctor a written response on that?
But I mean, it's a really good point to make. And Councillor Gandhi, the point about with improvements in children's services, people come out of the system and less people in the system. That's reduction in children's services, but the bow wave of looking after people longer, we are fully aware of that and trying to mitigate those challenges as we speak, are we not?
We are, but I mean, not everybody that we deal with comes out of children's services. Let's be clear, the majority are just members of the public.
No, sorry, that's not the point I'm making. I was making the point that if children are in the system and the system's working well, they come out of that system as soon as possible.
Yes.
That aside,
Yes.
when you've got vulnerable adults, they will be in the system with us because they need that support long term. And that, I think, is, and that increasing number is the bow wave that Councillor Harvey was referring to. So that we're fully aware of the increased numbers and demand. It's how we manage to mitigate that. And
I mean, I think I made a comment at the last cabinet or the one before that we are now reaching what is the post-war baby bulge, and so those of us who are in their 70s, 80s are the post-war baby bulge, and in probably another 30, 40 years from now, there's going to be another similar bulge again, and it was always going to happen. It's just the difficulty we've got is that people are living longer and in particular in Herefordshire, they are living longer. They just are not living well. And the real answer to all of this is prevention. And we've really got to get in at the very early stage and bring in prevention to stop the people becoming ill in the first place. And that applies to all of us in the room, all of you that have your bacon sandwiches on a Thursday morning when you come in.
Let's not be hasty.
You know, it applies to everybody, that to live healthy and prevent yourself getting into the position where you need adult social care.
Councillor Hercombe.
Yeah, I just wanted to pick up on the DSG point, because I think we talk a lot about it being off balance sheet and the debt sitting, you know, somewhere else because the government's allowed us to do that because they're not prepared to fund it properly. But can you just confirm that the interest payments for that debt are actually on balance sheet and we are paying those, and that is a revenue pressure that we need to be clearly identified to the government that they need to fund properly?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, to address that point, yes, although the capital sits off, the interest sits very much in our revenue, and we work on a basis of £600,000 per £10 million, so £40 million, but effectively 37.5. We're approximately looking at 0.6 times 4, £2.4 million impact on revenue every year.
So on behalf of all councils up and down the land, let's get better funding for that key service. Right. Okay. Oh, Councillor Price.
Yes, thank you, Leader. There's a lot of mention today and around at the present moment on the SEN transport, particularly with taxis. Just to give you an idea of when we think we might be able to make substantial savings, which we're hoping to do, this autumn we've seen an increase of 100 passengers per day, which is making somewhat of a mockery of trying to take that figure down. People would not be aware, generally aware, but you know, 500 passengers per day it might be the wrong word to say, but it's used as passengers. Some are individually, some have assistance, some are multiple taxi passengers, but they're travelling over 1.5 million miles a year on that service. And with the increase of pressure that we've had this year, it's unlikely that we're going to get the budget down to where we would like it to be. So it is a pressure that will go on and it will continue. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Councillor Price. We have 3 recommendations before us with regard to accepting the report on the budget performance. Councillor Stoddard, I presume you'll propose all 3. I'll second that. And Cabinet members, all in favour? Great. Okay then. And thank you to comments from group leaders. That was really helpful. So agenda item 9 is the risk management update quarter 2 for 2025-26. And this is to provide an update on the status of the corporate risks at the end of quarter 2 and to provide assurance that risks are being managed effectively across the council. So this item begins on page 81 of the agenda pack. And once again, I'll ask Councillor Stoddard to take us through the report. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. The revised risk management strategy 2025-26 and risk appetite statement were approved by Cabinet in June 2025. The strategy sets out the approach and principles of risk management, outlining the Council's risk appetite to inform the management of risk by members and officers across the Council. As part of that strategy, we stated that we would review our corporate risks on a quarterly basis. The report before you today shows that the corporate leadership team have undertaken a review of the corporate risk register, which are included at Appendix A to this report on the 30th of September 25, to update risk scores, consider the adequacy of control measures and mitigating actions, and identify new threats and opportunities to the delivery of the objectives and the priorities of the Council Plan 2024-2028. The revised corporate risk register approved by Cabinet in June 25 included 9 corporate risks. At quarter 2, no additional risks have been identified for inclusion in that corporate risk register. The scores of each of the risks have now been reviewed by the relevant risk owner, supported by discussion and oversight by CLT, with changes to risk scores of corporate risk as summarised in follow. Risk 4. Failure to deliver capital and major projects within identified resources and planned timelines, resulting in significant overspend and reduced project outcomes. The risk score has now been updated to 12 at Q2, based on a likelihood of 3, which is possible, an impact of 4, which is up from 3 previously, which is now major, from a previous score of 12 at Q1. And this recognises the impact of risks to project budgets. Risk 5 is failure to deliver a sustainable financial strategy that supports delivery of the council plan priorities, including delivery of savings, commercial income, capital receipts, and ensuring resources are available to deliver statutory obligations and fund organisational development and transformation. The risk score has been updated to 12 at Q2, with a likelihood of 3 or possible, and an impact of 4 major from a previous score of 9 at Q1. And this recognises the impact of risks to the Council's financial stability as a result of the fair funding review and increasing demand and cost pressures. In addition to the review of the Corporate Risk Register, CLT members are engaged in activity to review and monitor directorate, service and project level risk registers and embed the revised strategy across the Council. The Council's 25-26 internal audit plan has been reviewed to ensure it is aligned to the refreshed risk strategy and risks identified in the Corporate Risk Register, and the revised plan was approved by the Audit and Governance Committee in September of 2025. Further activities planned during 25-26 include risk management training, an update of the Council's risk management intranet page, and development of risk management dashboard reporting. Effective risk management is essential to the delivery of the priorities set out in the Council plan. Specifically, the Council plan commits the Council to develop a corporate risk strategy to improve the process for managing corporate and directorate risks. Appendix A details the Corporate Risk Register and shows the 9 corporate risks, with details of the risk owner, the risk appetite, the control measure and mitigating actions, the inherent risk score and residual score. I would draw your attention to Risk 3, lack of local special educational needs and disabilities SEND placement provision to meet current and future demands, which has a very high status and is of significant concern, and the mitigating actions demonstrates how we're dealing with this very complex and challenging issue. In summary, this clear report is yet another example of the strong governance that we have here within Herefordshire Council, and demonstrates the full transparency that this Conservative administration takes to ensure that the risks faced by the Council and how they're addressed is open and transparent for all. I would now like to invite you all to endorse this report and its 2 recommendations. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Stoddard. Any Cabinet members have any comments to make on the risk report? Councillor Hurcombe.
Given the recent weather we've experienced, is the intention to look again at how we classify the risk of weather events? Because last year was significant flooding. We've obviously increased the flood risk team as a result, but it would be probably prudent to look into the future and think, actually, is there something we need to record on the Council's risk register in relation to that?
Councillor Stoddard.
Yeah, that's something we keep an open review, and it's something we'll look at, Councillor Hurcombe. Thank you.
Okay. Any other Cabinet member? If not, then I'll go to group leaders. Councillor Harvey.
Yes, thank you, Leader. Can I start off by congratulating our Section 151 officer on the work that has been undertaken in sharpening up this process and really giving it a good old shake. I know that Audit and Governance Committee have already run their ruler over this, and of course there is a split responsibility here between process and content. The Audit and Governance Committee is responsible for the process and making sure that it's rigorous and firm, by which we assess risk and represent it. But the scrutiny committees are responsible for, scrutinising on the content, and cabinet members are responsible for actually holding and reviewing and keeping an eye on the risks in their area. Now, the report that we have here is just showing the top level corporate risks, and of course underneath those are directorate and service area risks. So first of all, I'd like to request some assurance that cabinet members in their monthly portfolio briefings have sight of and are actively involved in the management and mitigation of all of the risks that sit underneath these top level corporate risks at directorate and service area levels, so that they can be properly informed and responsible for what's going on below these high level risks. The second point I'd like to make is as far as the extremely high risk that's identified for corporate risk 3, it does actually sit across the DSG and the Send Transport, and presumably there are other things sort of underneath that as well. I'm struggling a little bit with there being just one kind of overall scoring for those two quite different dimensions of risk that are kind of bundled together in R3. It feels to me like those really ought to be separated, because they are quite different, and the way in which they're mitigated is quite different, and the way it's showing in the appendix, it's not really clear how the DSG risk is being mitigated and how that mitigation is actually impacting to deliver a residual risk for that particular huge sum of money that we're carrying at the moment. So I think it is appropriate, given the scale of it, over £40 million, that we actually have that recognised separately, and the actions that are being taken to mitigate and deal with the residual risk that is consequent is actually set out there properly. Yeah, I think what I'd also like to ask is that there's some assurance given that the directorate and service area risks that exist but just are not visible in this document are being shared with the scrutiny committees, so that they can consider their work programmes in the light of where they may wish to poke a little bit and get their own assurance on how risks are being dealt with below the corporate level.
Okay, thank you very much for that, Councillor Harvey. Next, group leaders online or in the room, or
I wasn't.
Okay.
I wasn't going to say anything, but since Councillor Harvey has raised that issue about scrutiny committees and their role with regards to risk, I will just endorse that, and yeah, I'm sure that scrutiny committees are being able to see risks and bring them into their work planning, but it would be great to get that confirmed.
okay, noted. And Councillor Davis, have we lost Councillor Davis? Okay, well, if she comes back, we will go back to her for any comments she may have. Okay, right. So, Councillor Stoddard, are you assured that all your cabinet colleagues are assured that they're being updated monthly on the assurance of the need to be aware of the risks in each of their departments?
Thank you, Leader. Yes, where relevant is what I would put as a councillor there. As we say, underneath we've got the detail, we've got service, directorate and project risks. We're also looking for a major projects dashboard. That's one of the aspects that the new CRO will, and his review of our whole data structure will provide us for, and that will be very, very useful for all cabinet members, but also all officers who will have an easy access to that dashboard. the risks that are the ones that threaten delivery of the council plan priorities. So that's why we've got the 9, as Councillor Harvey said, A&G, they have approved the record that we have. They don't actually manage the risks, that's ourselves and CLT and others, but they approve what we're doing. And Kerry Diamond says that we believe that those 9 are appropriate. The more and more you get, it moves from being a corporate risk register to now then being operational. So we prefer to keep it at that level. However, what we can say is that within the DSG risk, we can include a bit more detail on the controls that we've got in place to monitor the spend. So to meet Councillor Harvey's concerns, we can add that piece in. And then lastly, what we can do to speak with Councillor Proctor and Councillor Harvey is those operational and project register risks, risk register, can be made immediately available to any scrutiny panel member that would like to have a look. So yes,
and that could then inform their work programme, because they could identify some risks that they may want to focus on.
That would, of course, they would then. We don't have scrutiny panels risk registers. That we've got the project risks. If they identify something, then and they raise it to the project officer or the service level director, and they wish to then put it into those registers, then yes, fine, no problem at all.
Okay, thank you for that. Thank you for those useful suggestions. Right, so we have the recommendations before us. Councillor Stoddard is proposing, I will second. So we've 2 recommendations. All in favour? Right, okay then. Just checking, does anybody want a quick break or do we press on? Press on, good. All right, thank you very much. So we move on to the local transport plan 5, 2025 to 2041. So this is to seek cabinet approval and recommend the local transport plan to full council. And this item begins on page 95 of the agenda pack. And I will ask Councillor Price to introduce the item. Thank you.
Thank you, Leader. The Council, as a local transport authority, is required to adopt a local transport plan under Section 108 to 113 of the Transport Act 2000. The policies within the plan must promote safe, integrated, efficient and economic transport. The plan must review, replace or alter it when the Council consider it appropriate to do so. The Act requires consultation, and upon adoption of the plan, it must be provided to the Secretary of State. This LTP document has been under review for a period of time and comes to us today with 1 recommendation. I will pick up on some of the points that the document considers. It unlocks eligibility for competitive strategic DFT funding, e.g. active travel, bus service improvement plan, the BSIP funding, and provides a strong business case for a major infrastructure project, e.g. the Western Bypass. Additionally, the government have been progressing with a new incentivised element to the highways maintenance block, with a proposed 25% funding uplift given if councils meet certain criteria such as best practice in sustainable transport and long-term planning and asset management. Ensures infrastructure investment is targeted and evidence-based, improving the reliability and quality of bus services and reducing chronic road network delays. Provides a clear, measurable framework for reducing transport emissions by 40%. Public health benefits by encouraging active travel measures with engagement of Active Travel England. The adoption of the LTP5 is central to delivering the Council's environmental policy commitments and achieving key success measures outlined in the County Plan. The environmental impact of all future projects within the LTP5 will be a key consideration in their respective business cases, ensuring appropriate measures are taken to minimise negative effects and maximise environmental benefit. Financial implications. The LTP5 is a strategic planning document and does not in itself commit the Council to any immediate capital expenditure. The purpose is to provide a clear framework for future investment. Funding to support the development and initial implementation of these policies is already included within the Council's medium-term financial strategy. All future infrastructure projects and major schemes identified in the LTP5 will be subject to separate review and will require future funding bids, including capital programme allocations and external grant opportunities. The Council Plan 2024 to 2028 commits Herefordshire Council to develop Herefordshire as a place for growth, prosperity and communities to thrive. This year, the delivery plan has committed the Council to deliver the local transport plan to ensure places can prosper and thrive with the right integrated transport networks, and to seek Cabinet approval to recommend the adoption of the LTP5 to Council for agreement and Cabinet implementation thereafter. Risk management is laid out at para 16, page 102 of this report, and clearly lays out the impacts of not adopting the LTP5. The consultation process for the Local Transport Plan 5, that's the LTP5 2025 to 2041, was highly inclusive, integrating extensive public feedback to shape the final strategic documents. The officers' review comments raised are looking to the briefing held this week and consider requests for recommendation ahead of the Council meeting in December should additional change be necessary to this document. Detailed information on the consultation undertaken can be found at Appendix A. An 8-week consultation on the draft LTP5 took place over the summer 2025, that's from May till June. The consultation utilised both in-person and online forums to maximise its reach and engage with a diverse range of residents in Herefordshire. It was primarily hosted on the Council's online webpage, Herefordshire Consultations. A young adult survey was also shared online, and hard copies of the draft LTP5 were made available in libraries across Herefordshire. There were also a handful of events such as engagement with schools and colleges across the area, including the Hereford Sixth Form College. Feedback from Herefordshire Council's Connected Communities Scrutiny Committee meeting of the 3rd of June has also been considered. Views expressed during the consultation period from consultees, stakeholders and strategic partners are shown at Appendix A, pages 188 of this agenda. The draft document was published last week, and an all-member briefing was held earlier this week to go through the changes to the consultation draft document as a result of the consultation responses. The purpose of this report is to seek Cabinet approval for the Local Transport Plan LTP 2025 to 2041. The recommendation is that the Local Transport Plan for Herefordshire is recommended to Council for adoption. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Price. It just noted that there was the all-member briefing, wasn't there, that occurred, and so we had comments and feedback from that. So is it possible to include an amendment, but an extra recommendation which delegates authority to you to add anything that you think should be included for full council?
We can add and delegates to the Cabinet Member for Transport and Infrastructure in consultation with the Director of Economy and Environment to make any consequential amendments to the LTP necessary as a result of all-member briefing before making a recommendation to Council, if that is a satisfactory form of words.
Yes, that sounds satisfactory. I think we should add that as the second recommendation. Cabinet members, any comments on the Local Transport Plan in its current phase? No. If not, we'll go straight to group leaders. Councillor Simmons was first.
Thank you, Leader. I don't think any of you thought you'd get away without me commenting on this today at Cabinet. I'm pleased to say I've got quite a few comments. I'm very pleased to finally have sight of the LTP, the final LTP. We've been asking for it. It wasn't provided at the PGC, so we weren't able to give actually detailed comments at PGC. It has been revised substantially, I understand, since the scrutiny looked at it. And again, we haven't seen it since then, June, for us to be able to comment. So this has been the first opportunity at Cabinet we can see, and I suspect there's going to be quite a lot of discussion at full council on it. I really do appreciate the work of all our officers to get it to this stage. But I feel, and this is a criticism, that despite the officers' best efforts, the political leadership has ensured that this LTP is not an example of best practice, as you have claimed, Councillor Price. it's not sufficiently forward-looking, and we raised this right at the beginning when we set the objectives. The Green Group have worked really hard to try and provide detailed comments on the draft LTP to help improve the plan. We've tried to give comments wherever possible, but we've seen little evidence of where these have been incorporated. To achieve modal shift, we desperately need much more focus on other forms of transport. There is an over-reliance on one major infrastructure project to help us achieve this. We can see that we need half-hourly buses from all our market towns, not just Ross and Leominster, as in the action plans. And also where the buses are hourly, they are not sufficiently reliable, with many young people unable to get to college for things like on the 33 bus from Ross or the 476 from Ledbury. I'm particularly concerned that there's no reference to the climate emergency declaration made by all of us. And as I said, if you look at Cornwall's LTP, it's a completely different beast in terms of how it addresses the real existential threat and the damage that's done to the network and the risk of the LTP going forward. That is an example of a really good practice LTP. There's no reference in the linked strategies and plans at Figure 1 to the Council's own climate change adaptation plan, which clearly sets out potential risks and needs for the network, the infrastructure for transport to be better. And as an example of tackling climate change, one of the items listed is to build the bypass. It would be interesting to see what the strategic environmental assessment rating is for this. Talking of the SEA and the LTP and focusing on the procedural aspect, I do note that this LTP final for approval and recommendation by Cabinet to go to full council, we have not had sight of the strategic environmental assessment environmental report. That should have accompanied this document to enable us to see, and you as the decision makers to have sight of that. It's not available in this agenda pack, nor is the draft SEA ER available on the council website. It's just simply links and points in the wrong direction to the 2018 Dealwood Neighbourhood Plan. Can you assure me, Cabinet Member, that you have had the final SEA ER and that your Cabinet colleagues who are voting on this today have at least seen the NTS and understand what the headline predicted significant environmental effects of the LTP are before you'd approve this decision to take it to full council? Thank you.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Simmons. And Councillor Proctor?
So obviously the Liberal Democrats are pleased to see the inclusion of the bypass in there, but in all other regards, I think we probably find ourselves more in the position of the Green Group than the Conservative Group. So notwithstanding that large infrastructure project, we do need significant ambition for modal shift. We need considerable investment in active travel. I'm hoping that the LC whip will be sufficiently ambitious, and I'm that maybe hope against experience. And there's one other thing that I just want to highlight. So there are only 4 mentions of children in the plan. And one of those is in the summary of consultations, saying that councillors wanted there to be more the plan to directly address the needs of children and young people. It's only recently been council policy to work for a child-friendly Herefordshire, but it has been informal cabinet policy for a very long time. So perhaps the cabinet member could explain what the key aspects of the LTP are that will contribute to a child-friendly Herefordshire.
Thank you very much for that, Councillor Proctor. And no, if there are no more, Councillor Harvey.
Yeah, sorry, I didn't want you to think you were going to be able to miss out on the pearls of wisdom that will drop from my lips. Yeah, sorry, I indicated at the same time as Councillor Simmons. Thank you, Leader. It's good to see this administration's thoughts on paper about improving the transport infrastructure. However, it continues to be a nonsense that this is being updated out of alignment with the development of the local plan, because it just means that we've got a document here which is being proposed without being able to take into consideration where the local plan is looking at options for dumping thousands of houses at various locations across the county, and what the implications of that need to be considered in terms of transport infrastructure to accommodate those options. It's both the Independent for Herefordshire group and the Green group made substantial comment during the consultation phase on this, and it's hugely disappointing and a little bit worrying actually that the summary that has been provided as an appendix to this document of the consultation has completely omitted to recognise that those submissions have been made, stating that only 5 councillors bothered to respond to the consultation when, between us, our groups represent at least 16 councillors, and an awful lot of thinking in terms of an integrated response from each of the groups. Compounding that, it clearly says on the council's website that a summary of the consultation feedback will be provided alongside the final LTP to relevant council committees for approval. And then once approved, the final document will be made available on the website, and that's referring specifically to the consultations. Now, that detailed consultation sort of response document, we have been told as councillors in the briefing that we received, which was not a political group consultation. It was made very clear to us by officers that this was a briefing after the botched political group consultation the previous week, when we were being asked to give comments on a document that had not actually been provided to us, which was positively Kafkaesque. But we've been told in the briefing that this detailed consultation document does exist, but we've not seen it. It's not been available to the public. And, I've got a number of questions about that. Why is it being withheld? What committees are considered to be relevant to approve it if the scrutiny committees have been completely disrespected in terms of being bypassed to give comment on the validity of the consultation, the degree to which the concerns that have been raised through it have been addressed in the final version of the report, and to comment on the final version of the report itself. Saying that scrutiny looked at it at its summer consultation stage does not adequately allow for scrutiny to look at the final version of the document, particularly when we understand that as many changes have been made as a consequence of the consultation as we believe have taken place. And I find it also disappointing that when I asked, officers have not been able to provide me with a tracked changes version of the document to make it easy to see where those changes have actually been implemented in the version of the document that's being presented for Cabinet to consider here today. So, have Cabinet members seen that detailed document covering the consultation responses and the degree to which they have been addressed in the final version that's been provided? To what extent does the final version actually address the concerns that have been raised? And when is that document going to be made available? And is it going to be made available sufficiently in advance of full council for us to have the debate there that neither scrutiny nor the political groups have been able to have in commenting on this document before Cabinet go ahead and approve it? I understand absolutely that one of the reasons why this is getting pushed through is in order to give you guys policy cover for the spending that you continue to make on the road projects that have been removed from the policy framework by full council back in 2022, and you do not actually have policy cover for the money that you're spending and the actions that you're taking through delegated permissions to officers in progressing those projects, and that you're really keen to get that done by December to go to full council to give you that that policy cover. I can see why you're doing it. It's just the riding roughshod over the scrutiny function and political group consultation process that was only recently agreed by with group leaders seems bold, I guess, in a sense, for a minority administration, when actually you do kind of need to take the room with you on these sorts of things. And the sad thing is that there's a huge amount of really good stuff in this document, but the way that it's been dealt with through its latter stages to bring it here to Cabinet today and on to full council has really kind of undermined what could have been a really positive process to get everybody on side with what needs doing, setting aside that it's actually out of sync with the local plan, and you know that really does need addressing, and addressing fast.
Thank you for those comments, Councillor Harvey. Councillor Price, got comments to be made there, please?
Well, there's an awful lot of comments in there, and it's an interpretation of how it is. First of all, may I apologise to all of my colleagues on this council that we got it wrong with the PGC on the date we got it in relation to the release of the document. I apologise for that. When we set up the PGC, it was a date, and there was an expectation that we'd done it correctly. So I'll take that as an apology from me. With regards to many other things that you mentioned, I mean, there's a number of things you mentioned in no particular order. You mentioned the concept of the bypass. Was it actually cancelled? You might have cancelled where we were at that period of time, but it is our agenda to bring that back forward and to work up the necessary to take it forward. The old LTP is out of date, and in many ways there's no reference to LC WIP and BSIP. There's been a pickup on children, because we must consider children in everything we do. I'm told there's 58 mentions within the document of children, but per se it's we pick on one or two things. We do consider children in everything we do. What else have you made a mention of? Anyway, I'm sure that the SEA is not a mandatory requirement for an LTP report. If it definitely is, not all councils do it. It will be a legal requirement at the point of decision, and the point of decision is on the 5th of December at council. Because we are making a recommendation for it to go to council. So I've tried to address the points that are made.
Yes, for the purpose of the meeting, can we just get clarification on the SEA requirements, please?
So, Leader, it's my understanding that the SEA will be made available in the council pack at the time the full council will consider it, and I think we can take that as read.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay, thank you. So, Councillor Price, did you want to comment? Comment further?
No further comment on it at the present moment.
Okay, but the point has been made by the group leaders, or their representatives, I should say, about the situation with modal shift. Obviously, this document is not being seen in isolation, is it? There'll be the LC WIP that talks about the active travel measures that this council will set out as ambitions moving forward, but obviously that is a document that is to be consulted upon further, because that is not being considered at the moment in this time with this document.
The LC whip is a much more complex document than the LTP. The LTP is just a strategic document to go forward, and it will have, as was pointed out at the briefing by our officers, if you looked at it as being the parent, there are many child documents to follow. The LC whip and BSIP are two of those sorts of documents.
Would you agree then that seeing those documents in conjunction with the local transport plan, you'd be satisfied that there's definitely a focus on different choices of transport that we would be promoting?
If we go back to the meeting in June, I think it was, with the scrutiny meeting on the LC whip, there was Active Travel England representatives on that meeting, and very much more of a shift on change of mode of transport is very much part of the direction of travel. And of course we're delivering on that at the present moment with capital schemes that are just due to start this week on the Home Lacey Road as such.
Indeed. But a key driver for this local transport plan is to make sure that we have choice for people so that they can make the right travel choices. And I think that is key to the document and key to having a comprehensive raft of documents that go into buses, more cycling, etc.
I just need to have, I absolutely agree with what you say. The SEA, I need to have clarification, legal interpretation of that, because we're saying over there is a requirement at this stage. And I will have to get back to you on that. I'll clarify that. Thank you.
Okay. But that clarification will be provided before we go to full council with a recommendation. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Cabinet members, any other comments on the document before you? Any other cabinet members? Okay, is it a short point, Councillor Harvey?
Yes, it is. I think I'd just like some clarification. I mean, if it's when are the necessary documents going to be made publicly available and available to members? Is it going to be in advance of the agenda pack being published for full council, or will we get no more time on that than the statutory time for the agenda papers? Because I think a decision going to full council, it is assumed that all of the documentation associated with it will have gone through the necessary, investigation, consideration, and all the rest of it, prior to it ending up being published.
We will seek clarification for you, Councillor Harvey, as soon as when those documents could be made available. Okay. Any more comments from Cabinet members? So we have two recommendations before us. Let me just clarify them. So we have the recommendation that the local transport plan as proposed is recommended to Council for adoption, and that it delegates to the Cabinet Member for Transport and Infrastructure in consultation with the Director for Economy and Environment to make any consequential amendments to the LTP necessary as a result of all the member briefings or a member briefing before making the recommendation to Council. Is all Cabinet members happy with those two recommendations? Okay, Councillor Price, you're going to propose?
Yes, I'll propose that.
Okay, and Councillor Durkin is second. All Cabinet members in favour? Okay, thank you. Okay, so now we move to agenda item 11 of the meeting, which is to close the meeting, and I would like to thank everyone for their attendance, either virtually or in person. To confirm that the next meeting of Cabinet is scheduled for the 18th of December, 2:30, and so I will now ask for the live stream to be closed and the meeting to be closed.